There's one Simpsons episode that the show's creator Matt Groening himself called a mistake. Not just a bad episode, not just a weak story, but an actual mistake that shouldn't have been made. This episode aired in 1997, and to this day, hardcore fans pretend it doesn't exist. Some even call it the exact moment The Simpsons stopped being perfect. What's wild is that the episode didn't just upset viewers. The voice actors hated it, the creator hated it, and yet the writers who made it still defend it as some kind of misunderstood masterpiece. So what made this episode so controversial that it's been argued about for over 25 years? Before we dive into the chaos, let's talk about what made The Simpsons work for 8 solid seasons. Springfield had a rhythm. Every character had their place in the ecosystem. Homer was the lovable idiot. Marge kept the family together. Bart caused trouble. Lisa was the conscience. And then you had the supporting cast that made Springfield feel alive. Among them was Principal Seymour Skinner, the uptight by-the-book school administrator who lived with his overbearing mother Agnes. Skinner was pathetic in the best way possible. He was a Vietnam War veteran who somehow ended up as a principal, constantly pushed around by Superintendent Chalmers, manipulated by his mother, and hopelessly in love with teacher Edna Krabappel. For 8 years, the show built this character. We learned about his time in the war, his relationship with his mom, his sad attempts at romance. He wasn't just a side character anymore. He was fully developed, three-dimensional, and fans genuinely cared about him. But then Season 9, Episode 2 dropped, and everything changed. The episode opens innocently enough with Skinner's 20th anniversary as principal of Springfield Elementary. The whole town throws him a surprise party. Everyone's celebrating. It's actually kind of sweet seeing Skinner get recognition for once. But then a stranger walks through the door, a man nobody's ever seen before. And this man says something that stops the party cold.
You're not Seymour Skinner. I'm Skinner.
At first, everyone was shocked. Then Principal Skinner goes quiet. His face drops, and he admits something nobody saw coming. He's not Seymour Skinner. His real name is Armin Tamzarian. Everything we knew about this character for 8 years was based on a lie. The revelation doesn't just shake Springfield, it shatters the entire foundation of who Skinner is. So who is Armin Tamzarian? The episode gives us his full backstory, and honestly, it's pretty dark. Armin was a troubled orphan from Capital City who was heading straight for jail. To avoid prison time, he enlisted in the army and ended up in Vietnam. There, he met Sergeant Seymour Skinner, a stand-up guy who became his mentor and basically saved his life. The real Seymour told Armin about his dream of becoming an elementary school principal in Springfield after the war. But then Seymour went missing in action and was presumed dead. Armin felt obligated to deliver the news to Seymour's mother, Agnes. When he showed up at her house, Agnes mistook him for her son, and Armin, feeling guilty and seeing how desperate she was, just went with it. He let her call him Seymour. He took over the man's entire life. Meanwhile, the real Seymour Skinner wasn't dead at all. He spent 5 years in a prisoner of war camp, then somehow ended up working in a Chinese sweatshop for 2 decades until the United Nations shut it down. The guy went through absolute hell while an imposter lived his life. Now here's where things get weird. You'd think Springfield would be happy to have the real war hero back, right? Finally, the actual Seymour Skinner who survived all that trauma. But first, they have to deal with Armin. The town immediately turns on him once they learn the truth. He's a fraud, a liar, someone who stole another man's identity. Edna breaks up with him. The town shuns him. Armin decides there's no place for him in Springfield anymore and leaves for Capital City. The real Seymour Skinner finally gets to live his dream and becomes principal of Springfield Elementary. But there's a problem. The real Skinner is kind of a jerk. He's cold, distant, and doesn't connect with anyone. He refuses to live with his mother the way Armin did. He won't participate in the community. The writers described him as lacking pizzazz, and that's exactly what he was, just not quite right. Springfield realizes pretty quickly that they actually preferred the fake Skinner. Agnes especially misses having Armin as a son because he actually cared about her. So the Simpsons, along with Edna and Agnes, drive to Capital City to bring Armin back. This is where the episode crosses a line that fans couldn't forgive. The town doesn't just welcome Armin back. They actively choose to erase reality. Judge Snyder makes a legal declaration that Armin Tamzarian will forever be known as Seymour Skinner, that he'll keep his job as principal, and that nobody is allowed to mention this incident ever again under penalty of torture. And the real Seymour Skinner, they literally tie him to a chair on a train and run him out of town. The actual war hero who survived a POW camp and 20 years of forced labor gets banished, so a con artist can keep living a stolen life. The episode ends with everything reset like nothing happened. It's a lazy reset button that basically tells the audience to forget everything they just watched. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Fans were furious. Critics tore it apart. But what really cemented this episode's legacy as a mistake was the reaction from the people who made The Simpsons. Harry Shearer, the voice of Principal Skinner, didn't hold back. After reading the script, he told the writers it was wrong. He said they were throwing away 8 or 9 years of audience investment for no good reason, doing a story they'd already done with other characters. He called it arbitrary, gratuitous, and disrespectful. Years later, he added that the writers refused to even talk about the episode anymore, because they realized it was a horrible mistake. But the most damning criticism came from Matt Groening himself, the creator of The Simpsons. In the DVD commentary for Season 9, Groening described it as one of his least favorite episodes. In a Rolling Stone interview, he straight up called it a mistake. When the guy who created the entire show says an episode was a mistake, that's about as official as it gets. Critics and fans agreed. Chris Turner, in his book Planet Simpson, called it the moment the show took an abrupt plunge from its golden age. He described it as one of the weakest episodes in Simpsons history, a blatant continuity scrambling twist that wasn't even funny enough to justify itself. Ian Jones from The Guardian wrote that the show became stupid in 1997, pointing directly at this episode as proof. John Hine, the guy who literally coined the term jumping the shark, used the principal and the pauper as a prime example in his book. Alan Sepinwall noted that the episode was so implausible that even the characters were disavowing it by the end. The consensus was clear. This episode betrayed the audience, destroyed a beloved character, and marked the end of The Simpsons' golden age. Some fans go so far as to say it should be completely ignored and removed from canon. They advise new viewers to skip it entirely and pretend it never happened. But here's the twist. The writers who created this episode completely disagree. Ken Keeler, who wrote the script, has gone on record saying this is the best episode of television he ever wrote. He's genuinely proud of it. His defense is actually pretty interesting. Keeler argues that the episode is a meta-commentary about people who hate change. He says Springfield is a community that likes things exactly the way they are, and when someone comes in and disrupts that, they reject reality and attack the messenger. The episode is about the fans who hate it. The irony is that when the episode aired, a real community of people who like things just the way they are got mad, proving the episode's point. Keeler also mentioned that some of his original dialogue was changed, making this meta-commentary less obvious. Producers Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, who were showrunners at the time, also defended. They say they wanted to push boundaries and treat the episode as an experiment. They argue that fans should view it as non-canonical, something divorced from the larger series. The reset button ending was intentionally designed to let viewers ignore it if they wanted to. There's another layer to this that makes it even weirder. The name Armin Tamzarian wasn't random. Ken Keeler borrowed it from a claims adjuster who helped him after a car accident when he moved to Los Angeles. The real Armin Tamzarian had no idea his name was being used until after the episode aired. He sent Keeler what was described as a curtly phrased letter, asking why his name appeared in the show. Keeler thought he was about to face legal trouble, but it turned out Tamzarian was just curious. No lawsuit, no drama, just confusion. The real Armin Tamzarian, by the way, later became a California Superior Court judge. Imagine being a judge and having your name forever associated with one of the most hated Simpsons episodes ever made. The Simpsons itself eventually acknowledged the controversy. In Season 11's Behind the Laughter, a clip from The Principal and the Pauper was used as an example of the show's increasingly gimmicky and nonsensical plots.
With the family in disarray, episodes increasingly resorted to gimmicky premises and nonsensical plots.
The show was literally making fun of itself. In a Season 15 episode, Lisa calls Skinner Principal Tamzarian as a jab when he criticizes her.
That's really a cheat, isn't it?
I guess you're right, Principal Tamzarian.
These references show that even the writers knew they'd created something divisive, but they never apologized for it. They leaned into it. So what's the real takeaway here? Was this episode actually a mistake, or is it a misunderstood piece of satire? The truth probably lies somewhere in between. On one hand, the episode does have a point. It's a commentary on how audiences resist change, even when change might be necessary. Springfield's decision to exile the real Skinner and keep the imposter is absurd, but it reflects how we treat fiction. We want characters to stay exactly as they are. We don't want their histories rewritten or their identities questioned. The episode forces viewers to confront that discomfort, and yeah, people hated it. On the other hand, there's a reason the backlash was so strong. The Simpsons had spent 8 years building trust with its audience. Skinner wasn't just a joke character anymore. He was someone viewers genuinely cared about. To suddenly reveal that everything about him was fake felt like a betrayal. It didn't matter if the episode had a clever meta message. It hurt to watch a beloved character get erased. What makes this episode fascinating is that it proved something important about storytelling. You can't just change a character's entire past and expect people to be okay with it, even if you hit a reset button at the end. The damage was done. Fans lost trust in the show's continuity. They started wondering what else could be rewritten or ignored. That loss of trust is what really marked the end of The Simpsons' golden age. It wasn't just about one bad episode. It was about breaking an unspoken contract between the show and its audience. And once that contract was broken, it was hard to get it back. More than 25 years later, The Principal and the Pauper is still debated. Some call it the worst episode ever made. Others argue it's a brilliant satire that went over everyone's heads. Matt Groening calls it a mistake. Ken Keeler calls it his best work. And fans are still divided on whether it deserves to be erased from existence or reevaluated as something deeper. Maybe the real lesson here is that some truths about characters should stay buried. Maybe it's that change, even when justified, can destroy what made something special in the first place. Or maybe, just maybe, the episode succeeded in exactly what it set out to do: make people uncomfortable, spark debate, and prove that even a cartoon can cut deeper than expected. Whatever the answer, one thing's certain: this episode will never be forgotten, no matter how hard Springfield tries to pretend it never happened. If you like this video, I recommend checking out my channel. There are plenty more like this.